All right, episode number 13 with Steve Smith. Many of you will know him as Red Green. He's had a fascinating career, and we sat down and chatted about his whole career, everything from the beginning up until now. And I've been working with Steve for the last several years on his tours, and I know you're going to really enjoy our talk in this podcast. All right, let's get her going. All right, we're here with Steve Smith, as a lot of you know as Red Green. Do you find that, do you have a lot of people just call you Red Green? I guess you would.
Yeah, I do. They'll say, hey, Red, how's it going, Red? That kind of thing. But, you know, I created the character, and I write for the character, so that's where he came from. I can't really blame anybody else, so I don't mind. Yeah, I guess it's someone like seeing someone on TV, like a TV show. Obviously, they saw you on TV, but if you're watching Friends, you probably relate to that person as the character. As the character. Yeah. But they're doing a script in most cases, and sometimes they get a little huffy about, you know, like say William Shatner being Captain Kirk. He's not that happy about it. No. He didn't create Captain Kirk. It's like somebody threw a veneer on you while you were asleep, and now you're known by your veneer. Yeah, he seems to be like a very unhappy person in general anyways. If he ever comes to Earth, I think he'll be fine. Yeah, exactly. So, did you actually grow up in Hamilton or that area? No, you know, I until I was about 12, I lived in Toronto. I was born in Toronto. Oh, okay. And then we moved to Brantford, and then we moved to Mississauga. And then I started a band, and we all bought a house in Grimsby, some big old 17-room thing. And then we moved to Hamilton from there, and then went to Burlington, came back to Hamilton. A lot of moves for some reason or other. Yeah, but not too far. They're not as if you're moving, to another province or. No, that's right. They're not big changes that way. I mean, our friends and our family were here, so I guess we just kind of settled in the area. So, for the people who don't know, you actually started off as a musician and singer, and what did you play guitar, correct? Is that correct? Yeah, I'm not a musician, in the terms of playing an instrument well. I think I have music in me. I wrote a lot of songs when my wife and I were doing a TV show, but I always loved music. I think there's a real connection between music and comedy anyway. Yeah. Like I only work with editors who can dance, because if you can't get the rhythm of a comedy line, you're done. So it was a hobby for me. I was after high school, we formed a little group and just kept it going. I taught public school for a couple of years, and then ended up leaving all that and taking a chance on the music business. So you went to school for a teacher? Yeah, back in those days, as long as you were 6 months older than the students, you could teach. So there was I used to teach guitar lessons on Wednesday because I took them on Tuesday, the same kind of thing. You went for 1 year after high school, and you had your teacher certificate. Wow, that was it. Yeah. So I know, and that was for the elementary school. For high school, you had to have a university degree, but that's all changed now. So going back into public school and into high school, did you consider, most people consider yourself as the funny guy in the class? Were you the class clown, or were you pretty quiet? Well, in between those two. Yeah. In fact, grade 6, 7, and 8, I had the same teacher all 3 years, which is kind of unusual. Yeah. And she was fantastic. And I was allowed to speak out in class. I was the only one who was allowed to speak out in class. Wow. Because I would say things that were not destructive. They were just funny. She felt it helped her keep the class interested. I'd say something about what she was talking about that kind of added an entertainment component. And, I didn't know at the time, but I'm not sure I would have pursued what I ended up doing if I hadn't had that, encouragement at that early age, when I was kind of small, and I wouldn't say I was really shy, but I certainly kept to myself. I wasn't one of these, I didn't do practical jokes. I wasn't the loud guy, but I had funny ways of looking at things that the teacher supported, and that really helped me. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. Because you wouldn't normally get that, because the teacher would want, but she understood that it kept everyone interested, and
Smart on her end as well.
Yeah, actually, the Ontario Teachers Federation came to me and they have a little magazine, and they wanted to know if there's ever a teacher that really had influenced me.
Yeah.
And I went crazy about her. Her name was Ruth Purdy, and it just absolutely altered my life, and perhaps did for other students, because she was that way with everybody. She tried to figure out what it was about you that should be encouraged.
Yeah. So did she, in later years, get to see you perform or see any shows or
not as far as I knew. I mean, there was a big gap between me being in grade 7 and me being Red Green. You know what I mean? Like I'm the Colonel Sanders of comedy. So,
you wonder though if she was
aware or something.
Yeah,
she may have been. I don't know.
Yeah. So getting into music, what was your kind of influences in music when you were in high school and that?
Well, in the 60s, I was a teenager in the 60s. The whole folk thing where you just you have a guitar and a harmonica and away you go. And there's coffee shop. And I lived in Streetsville. It's small. It was a police village. I never knew what that meant, but anyway, they had opened a coffee shop. They converted a gas station into a coffee shop. It was called the In Crowd, and a bunch of us thought, well, let's put something together. So 6 of us formed this group with guitars and stand-up bass and I don't know what else. But anyway, we learned 12 songs and went down there and auditioned and got the gig. So we'd work Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. And I'm in Friday night till maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. 6 of us, and I think we got $125. So you couldn't have been happier. It's like we are rolling.
Yeah, was probably pretty decent for that time.
I guess it was. It's what we got. I don't even think they served alcohol at the place. So it was. I mean, it went. The place went under even at that. Yeah. At that overhead, couldn't make it work.
I know. Last week when I was talking to Frank Mills, he was mentioning when he started doing dances when he was in high school, he'd come home with $15, and that was just huge. Yeah. And he showed, hey, look, Dad.
Doesn't get any. I got a friend who was he wanted to be a stand-up comedian. He moved to New York, and they had this open mic at this comedy place. I forgot what it was called, but he said he went for 6 months, and he got so good that he didn't have to pay to perform.
That's the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So were your parents pretty supportive of music, and could they see, or is it the usual?
Yeah, funny. My father was a musician in his younger years, played the saxophone, and I brought the saxophone home you could take instruments home from school. I brought it home for him to try, and he wouldn't touch it. It was like. Yeah. He had decided that wasn't the way to go, and he wasn't going to go back on it. So he really wasn't. He wasn't supportive at all. He told my mother, that boy is not going to amount to anything. I didn't know that at the time, but I certainly could sense it. But my mother was just whatever I wanted to do was great for my mother. She's still with us. She's 95 years old and just kicking along. Yeah, she's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you finished up high school. You went and did the teachers thing for a year and
2 years.
2 years.
I always say I saved an entire generation by quitting. Then I went back to university, and then that didn't work out for me either.
What'd you take when you went back?
Well, first of all, I took engineering when I went after I graduated from high school. I went and took engineering at Waterloo, and that didn't go so good. And then when I came back, my dad wanted me to take an aptitude test so we could find out what kind of work I was out of. And so we went, and I did that. It was like a 3-day thing in Toronto. You write all this stuff out.
Yeah.
So then the guy, he has this big graph of what I'm good at and what I'm lousy at. And so he said, what you're really lousy at is sales. You don't get involved with sales at all. But he says, over on this side, your mechanical aptitude and so on is very, very high. So you should go to a university and take some kind of an engineering course, which I just flunked out of. So I said, well, wait a minute. At the other end of your graph, there's one that's even higher than the mechanical aptitude. What's that? He says, oh no, that's your entertainment quotient, but you can't make a living at that. I mean, what he meant was he can't make a living at that. Yeah. So anyway, so then from there, I went into teaching. I always wanted to be a teacher. Then I went back to university. I went to McMaster and took economics economics and political science. And after about a year and a half of that, I said, no, this is not for me either. Then I went and I actually sold gears. I worked for Boston Gear and sold gears, or I was supposed to sell gears, but I went to people hoping they would buy gears. This is after I was told, do not get into sales. And I proved that part of it right.
Yeah.
And then we all of us in the band, by then we were a rock band, we decided we were getting enough work that we could afford to just take a flyer, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what we did. That would have been probably 1970 at that time. And for the next 4 years, we were on the road in this rock band. So
how big of an area did you tour? Did you just tour across Canada, or did you stay?
You know, we did a lot of U.S. colleges. We were a cover band, but we sort of added a bit of show to it, you know. So I don't know. It was like, it wasn't Las Vegas because we weren't slick like that. We were more rocky than... It was an odd niche, and you know, that was a time in the early to mid 70s where you could work. You know, you could get work in a band. You know, there were lots of bars that paid well, and universities, and there's just a lot of work to do. And now, I mean, you got to pay to play there, or you got to do a video. You know, I mean, and all the years that we had done it part time, we paid off all our gear. So when day one, we had no debt. You know, if we made $5, then we made $5. We didn't owe 10, you know, to anybody.
Exactly.
So that really helped us. We
well, no distractions back then. You know, no internet, no. People were starving for something to do. And then the movies, I mean, obviously were there, but they weren't these mega places that we have now. Wasn't Netflix, wasn't all that.
No. You know, it's funny, like now that I'm doing these live show tour things, it's interesting to me. The way I look at it is there's never been easier access to everything in the world. You can see almost anything you want on your phone.
Yeah.
So there's no limited supply, with the exception of live performance. You're either in the room or you're not.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you're not in the room, you're not in the room. Whether you're watching it on a TV or a big screen or in a stadium or whatever, you either got to be there or you're not there. And I just think that makes it's like it comes right back to where we started, which was the ability to connect with people personally. You know, we're all breathing the same air, and all. I think that part is really neat.
Well, I think people still really crave that. You know, you look at Facebook and the amount of people who are addicted to Facebook.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just starving for some form of attention or connection to another human being, even though it's just virtual to some extent, right?
Absolutely.
So that connection with people is still really important, but people are getting stuck into a false connection with people on these social media sites. And you wonder, you take a look at things that are coming down the pipe now with virtual reality, and you put the goggles on, and you wonder if there's going to be, your tour is going to be one show and everyone pays to watch it on their virtual glasses, and it will be like being there. You're doing it live, but you only have to do one show, and you've got, God knows how many people watching that one particular thing.
Let's hope it doesn't.
No, there'll be.
I know what you mean. I mean, it's very, very possible. I think that as humans, we are programmed to be social, right? That's just, it's in our DNA, and a lot of us really resent it. So we're trying to be social in the least social way. You know, like you see a family of four sitting at a restaurant and they're all looking at their phones. I mean, are they together or not? Whereas,
and I think things like Facebook and all those, Instagram, it forces people who are not social to be social.
Yeah.
Because they can hide behind the frame of this computer screen, and it makes them social. But usually it makes those people social in a negative way. Yeah. I find those are the people who are the ones who are complaining and writing nasty stuff, and
it's
are mad at the
amazing
world.
how much anger is out in that world, isn't it?
It's crazy.
You look at anything, you pick any product, any subject, and you go on Google or whatever, and look at the comments. It's just, holy cow. People who are happy are very, very quiet.
Yeah. You wonder, because it's going to blow at some point.
Yeah.
You think that all this kind of anger and this, there's so much of it now. And it's got to peak at some point. It's got to be something that happens to calm everybody down. And I don't know what that's going to be, and it's ridiculous. Though you pretty well have to make sure that you just don't look at comments, or if you're a person who gets lots of comments or lots of negativity, you have to ignore it, or else it would just eat you up inside.
Oh, it'd be a killer. Yeah, I don't look at the stuff, but I mean, I know when we do a tour that the people that come up to talk to me afterwards are very friendly, very positive, complimentary, and so on. But they've been filtered out by the price of a ticket, so that's not the general public, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people are probably ambivalent towards me, which is fine. I always said that, you know, we never did the show for people who didn't like it, you know.
Yeah.
We're only doing it for the one. If nobody appreciates it, we don't get to do it. And that's fair enough, you know.
Yeah.
But I think too that not everybody deserves to be heard. Honestly, I mean, I know that's probably undemocratic to say, but people who haven't, you know, had any experience or haven't put any effort into learning about what they're talking about, you know, don't have a valid opinion yet. I mean, they may have one day, but go out and do the work and, you know, find out all the information and everything, and then see what your opinion is, rather than just this knee-jerk kind of.
Yeah, like I love watching some of these guys that go out to these protests and they debunk everybody. They go through the crowd and start asking them intelligent questions about what they're protesting about. They have no idea. No. They have no idea what the top, you know, they have, and it's just, oh gosh, at least you need to be informed and be knowledgeable about what you're protesting about.
Right,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So you went on tour for a few years and
to 1974, and I'll tell you what happened. We were performing at Cornell University, Ithaca, New York.
Wow.
And we had a manager then out of New York, and he had brought a guy, I don't even remember his name, but he was the manager for Deep Purple. And he came out to see us. And as I say, we were a cover band, but we had a show. There was a show to it. So
what was the name of the group?
Jason, Jason.
Yeah.
So, you know, usually when somebody comes out like that, you don't, you know, you stink, you know.
Yeah.
But we were just right. We were on that night, and we got 3 or 4 encores and everything. So after the show was over, I just couldn't wait to meet this guy, because finally all the forces of the universe came together. So he says to me, well, he said, that was interesting. I said, interesting? I'm like, what do you mean? Interesting? He said, yeah. Well, he said, well, you did, you know, the Mamas and Papas, you did the Beatles, you did the Beach Boys, you did the Four Seasons. He says, I know all those groups. They do what they do better than you do what they do.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Darren, it was like hitting me in the middle of the forehead with a sledgehammer. It was just like, he's right.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to make a living out of this industry, you got to be prepared to add something to it, not just do your version of what's already there.
Exactly.
And so the next day, you know, we all had a big band meeting, and I just said, you know what, we've got to go one way or the other here. Either we step up and do whatever it is that we do, or we step out, you know, because we're going down a cul-de-sac here. I'd rather turn around now, you know. So anyway, we couldn't come to an agreement. So my wife, Morag, she was in the group. So she and I left the band because it was nicer than firing everybody.
Yeah.
And that's when we started Smith & Smith, which was just the two of us. But I was writing everything.
Yeah.
So we couldn't get any work. I mean, it was crazy. But, you know, it was one of those... It's interesting how we got to the end of that, because that wasn't a smooth ride at all, but it ultimately worked out. But I'll tell you, there's some dark days when you go down that road too, you know. Yeah,
because you do covers to pay the bills, and you understand where that guy was coming from, but yet that transition, especially when you're having success as a band, right, and you're making money,
right,
and you got to do that switch, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, am I prepared to go through this lull to get back to, you know, hopefully get back to a place that's going to create some money again and create interest. And
I think you have to change where you're playing as well, because we were playing a lot of, club work and even colleges where they had an expectation of us performing the material they knew.
Yeah.
You know, so you want to go to a different audience. You can't just go back there and start playing original music. So, you know, what saved us probably, and Smith was an Irish bar in Toronto, the New Windsor House at Church in Richmond.
Yeah.
And it was small, but they had different levels. You'd play here, and then you go up and play upstairs. And there was another group that would switch places with you. But there was no dancing. People were just sitting, listening.
Yeah.
Well, that was perfect for what we were doing, because we were kind of doing comedy within songs and so on, and a bit of patter. And that helped us. I mean, every chance we got, we would perform in that place. But for us to go into a Holiday Inn or something where your background for salesmen picking up waitresses,
Yeah.
that was not our thing at all.
Well, you consider, if you look back, if you go see whatever group, say if you want to go see Queen,
Yeah.
or something like that, and they're going to say, oh, here's 3 brand new songs we're working on, and we're going to play them for you now. And the whole place is like, oh, crap.
Yeah. Oh, crap.
I mean, even the big artists go through that. People don't want to hear stuff they know unless it's entertaining, So you need that, like you said, you need that audience that's sitting there watching and taking in what you're doing. If
you do a new song and make it a hit, now you're allowed to play it for me.
Yeah.
But don't use me as your test market. You know, I paid $150 for this ticket. I want to hear your hit. You know?
Exactly.
No, it's a trap. And being in comedy, like I say to people, you can't do your greatest hits. You got to. Every tour I do, I got to create a whole new show, which is that's a whole lot of work in itself. But to me, that is much more appealing than getting out year after year and just recycling my hits from 30, 40 years ago. That would drive me nuts.
Yeah. I mean, the only person you think that can really do that would be someone like Andrew Dice Clay, who has, those particular things that people will go and repeat his jokes to him.
Yeah.
I mean, what a weird thing that is for a comedian, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to do your old stuff.
Right.
And while you're telling your jokes, people are actually saying the jokes back to you at the same time, which is like, that's got to be really weird. But
I think that is a whole other thing. That's Rocky Horror Picture Show as stand-up.
Yeah. But so Smith & Smith, and you're working at the pub there. Yeah,
well, let me tell you how that went, because we went on this diminishing returns and selling equipment to pay the rent. And finally, we came to the end of it, and there was nowhere to go. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to take the last few pennies we got. We're going to go to Europe, have a little holiday, camping or whatever. And then when we come back, we'll sell aluminum siding or whatever it takes. Just go get a job and survive. And the phone rings, and it was a guy named Jim Scarrett Promotions.
Yep, I know who that is.
Yeah, okay. And he says he had seen us at the New Windsor House, and he'd like us to be the opening act for Al Martino, who's like an Italian crooner, you know, at Hamilton Place. I said, well, I appreciate that, Jim, but like, you're too late. We've already decided this isn't going anywhere. We're out of here. So I hang up, and of course, Morrig brings me back to, you call him right back. So I called him back. So we opened for Al Martino at Hamilton Place, and we didn't know it, but that was kind of our tryout for Jim, and then he gave us 6 or 7 more days. We went across Canada, opening for Al Martino, and then we did that a lot over the next few years. But this is the important one, because when we got back from that tour, it's now October, November, whatever it was. And so, okay, that was great. That's the kind of thing we want to do. But now what?
Yeah.
We go back to the New Windsor House. Like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
So, again, Maureen says to me, well, she says, we need to have a television show. I said, okay, I'm in, How do you suppose we do that? Well, she says, that's the first decision. We got to have a television show, and we don't care where it is, Yeah. We don't care if we have to go to Baffin Island, because we should be on television, because that's the kind of material we're doing. I said, okay. She says, but we might as well start in Hamilton. That's where we are. We were living in an apartment in Stony Creek. So I start calling over to get somebody to talk to in Hamilton, right, at CHCH. And the guy's name was Frank Denardis. He was a general manager and vice president. And I'm calling every day for 3 weeks, and all I get is, I'll take a message, Mr. Denardis is at a meeting, blah, blah, blah. So, every day my wife's reminding me. So finally I'm at the end of my rope, and she says, "Did you call Mr. Denardis today?" I said, "No, I didn't." "Well, you get in there and call." I said, "No, I'll tell you what. Why don't you call him? You feel what it's like to call and go through that BS, right?"
Yeah.
So she goes in. She didn't want me to hear the call. She goes in the bedroom, calls from that phone, comes back out. "We got a meeting Tuesday." Now, I got to tell you, there's no proof of this, but back in those days, when a woman calls for a TV executive, they put the call through because they don't know. So we go in, and I got this whole presentation that we're going to do. This is a TV show and the format and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And he says, before you start, he says, "I got to tell you, I was in the audience for the Al Martino show."
Oh, wow.
And he said, and we had a great review. He says, "I thought the review was a little harsh on you." He says, "So somebody's going to give you a television show. Might as well be us. Now, what do you want to talk about?"
Holy smokes.
Oh. Unbelievable. And for, gosh, I'm going to say 8 or 9 seasons, I think. One was a half season, so 8.5 seasons. It was a handshake.
Yeah.
Frank, I'd go in and talk to Frank, telling him what Morag wanted, and he would say, "Okay," he says, "just write it up on a piece of paper so I can see what I said."
Yeah.
I mean, and later when we had a falling out with new management and new ownership and everything else, a contract wasn't enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, talk about a 180.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole other subject.
So, what was it like starting a TV show? You've never done a TV show before. You got to create the show. What was that process all like?
Well, it was, you had to go all in. I mean, it was just a massive amount of work because there was no budget, and I was writing everything. I was writing all the sketches and all the songs and everything, and it was a lot, and we had no money. We had our fee was $500 a show. We did 13 shows, so it was $6,500.
Yeah.
We did the first 13 episodes. And that was all the writing, all the performing, the whole shebang.
Wow. So what's the format of the show? Obviously, 30-minute show?
Yeah, it was 30 minutes. I tell people it was kind of like the Canadian Sonny and Cher, except maybe the songs were a little more original in terms of they were comedy songs and everything.
Yeah.
Cher was she just came out flat out sang, which Morag did a bit of that as well, but we had the other mixed in with it. But we did eventually have guests, but I don't think in the first 13 we did. And I had friends say to me, and don't do it. Don't just say, "No way, you're not doing it for that. That's not even union minimums, and everything."
Yeah.
You know what? This is our opportunity. Let's see how we do,
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a good way to go.
So did you get syndicated as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the time the second season came along, when we did the pilot based on our meeting with Frank, and then by the time the pilot came in, it was obvious that Morag was pregnant. Let me tell you this other story. Back before any of this, before Al Martino and all that stuff, we were starving to death out in our apartment in Stony Creek, like I say, selling stuff to pay the rent. And I decided that our problem was we didn't have enough debt. That's the way I think. So Morag's dad wanted us to own a house, not to rent anywhere. So I said to him, "Well, if you can see your way to lend me $5,000, I can use that as a down payment in a house. You could buy a house in Hamilton for under $50,000, right?" So he did that. So now I'm barely paying the rent. I put $5,000 down on a house on Kensington Avenue in Hamilton. Then I went to the bank and I said, "I want to start my own business. I need a $5,000 business loan." And they said, do you have any equity? I said, "Yes, I have $5,000 equity in this house." I didn't tell them it wasn't my equity. Anyway, I got the loan. So now I got a $10,000 debt, but $5,000 is to her dad, and the other $5,000 to the bank. Anyway, I'm excited. Yeah. I come home, this is great. I've got $10,000 in debt. We can do something,
Yeah.
So she's not there. Where the heck, So she comes home about 45 minutes later. "Where were you?" "At the doctor." "Guess what?"
Oh.
And one of the funny things is, there was no reason at all to be happy. we were ecstatic. Like we didn't think about the responsibility of that, or now we're really screwed financially. It was just like, wow, this is fantastic. So sometimes when things aren't going my way and I get kind of upset about it, I think, if that wasn't bad, this can't be bad,
Yeah, exactly.
So then when we did the pilot, like she was always obviously pregnant. So they said, okay, we're going to pick up the series, but we're going to wait till after she has the baby.
Yeah.
So that was Max. He was born in July. So we started doing the next season like in September or something. Well, she was pregnant again. So by the time we ended that season, she was starting to show. I was just like, they said, okay, we're going to give you another season, but keep him away from her. So we didn't have any more kids. We had a career instead.
Yeah. So what, you got syndicated in the second year?
Yeah.
And so
just in Canada.
Just in Canada. Yeah. Which is still really big at that time.
It was a business then. There were a lot of independent stations. They had their own awards, CanPro Awards or something. We used to be involved. Yeah, I mean, I talked about the bar business before. Well, the TV business went the same way. I mean, the last place I'd want to be today is in the television business. And it was just such a booming thing for so many years.
Well, you look back then, that was, the local channels were really putting together lots of shows.
Oh,
I mean, you look at I remember growing up and remember all the great shows, the local shows. Used to watch all the time, and they're producing tons of stuff. Now they produce nothing.
No,
nothing.
Well, they don't have to.
No.
They had to in those early days. Either they couldn't afford programming, or once the CRTC stepped in, which was like mid 70s, they had to based on their revenue. And this same guy, Frank Denardis, unfortunately he's passed away, but he and I became really good friends. And one day, well, they wanted me to do something about the station. They can do a presentation. So I wanted to know the history of CHCH. Yeah. And so I came in one day and I said to him, could you just give me half an hour, just give me the story? So he called his secretary, hold my calls, cancel my meetings. And we sat there, I'm going to say 4 or 5 hours. And he told me the whole story. It was incredible. Wow. They were making money from moment one. They were hiding cash up in the ceiling panels. It was just crazy. I mean, it was just a very lucrative business for a long time. Yeah. And then competition came in and it all kind of went away. So
obviously once you started doing your show, I'm sure your live gigs really started to take off.
Yeah, well, then we started to do more. Well, we didn't want to just do clubs and everything, so we only just wanted to do like the opening act thing. So we did that for a bunch, like Rick Nelson, Roy Orbison. I can't remember them all. Helen Reddy, remember Helen Reddy?
Oh yeah.
James Darren. Yeah, I mean, so we would do those tours, and that was kind of fun.
So the format was just the two of you. Were you just a duo still at that point when you were doing those openings?
Yeah. It was just, I'd play guitar and we'd sing and do some stuff.
So you probably, obviously, you figured if you had Facebook and all that back then, how, that would have been, what a great extension that would have been to doing the TV and connecting and growing things. But obviously, TV was the way to go. TV still, you can't beat being on TV. That's really...
No, but the thing that always bothered me about television, and I had some friends, like Frank Denardis was like my teacher in grade 6. He allowed me access to, he gave me the opportunity. Yeah. But so many other places, you run into somebody who won't, and to be fair to them, they're put in that position. That's their job. They're the ones that say yay or nay, but they're not always right. Yeah. And with the way things are now, almost everybody has access to everybody. Yeah. If you've got something of value and you really believe in it and you're prepared to tough it out, just put it out there and it'll, you'll see how it goes. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, so many people I knew, myself, I tried to get on CBC for 20 years. And I just could never find a fit in there. And the only, there's two reasons I got my show onto CBC. One was because the programming guy had his teenage boys at a Jumbo Video to rent movies, and then when they showed up at the counter, they had one of my specials in their hand, and he's going, "What? Like that's a Canadian thing, and we don't have it?" That was one part, and the other part was I had an audience, and they wanted my audience. So I got on. I didn't sell the CBC my show. I sold them my audience.
Yeah.
So
which is important now. I mean, that's kind of the way it works now on social media. You're selling your audience. The bigger numbers you have.
When I started the Red Green show, like Smith and Smith. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Should I stop? Should I stop getting ahead of myself?
That's all right.
Well, I'll tell you the story because it doesn't matter. I was still at CHCH, and we had done one season. We got renewed for a second season, and then they had all kinds of financial problems, and they just called me in and said they're not going to honor the contract, and I'm done.
Yeah.
And I'm just to get out and move out and everything. So I said, well, that's not going to work because I can't cancel my contracts. I'm on the hook for all these actors and everything. So what they said was, I said, what do you need to be whole? You have a financial problem with my show. And he said, I think he said $145,000. I'm just going to put it's something like that. So I said, I'll tell you what. I'll get you the $145,000, but I want everything I've ever done. I want all the Smith and Smith shows, all the Red Green, everything. I want total ownership of all that, and I'll let you out of the contract. And it was one of those weird things in life where he's laughing as I shake his hand, like, what an idiot. And I'm walking out the door. I don't want to turn back and look at him because I'm smiling so big.
Yeah.
I'm $50,000 overdrawn at the time. I don't know where I'm going to get $145,000, but at least I got a plan, right?
Exactly.
So they took the show off the air, and now what's happening is I'm getting letters from like viewers. I'm talking 1,000 a day. I would go down to the post office on Kenilworth, and it was like Miracle on 34th Street. The guy hand me a little bundle of mail, like 50 letters. This is your mail, because I had a post office box for the show. Yeah. And then I turn around and he says, "Oh no, wait, I think there's more." And then he'd come up with these boxes of mail for me to, and that's where we formed the lodge out of that. We started to say, let's make these people lodge members because they're all very supportive. Do what you have to do to keep the show on the air, all that kind of stuff. And it was it was like that conversation with the manager of Deep Purple. It was another life moment for me. It was like, holy cow, I was focused on the program director. I forgot who the customer was. Yeah. The customer's the audience, you know? And up until then, we had never had a live studio audience for Red Green, for example. So now I'm working, okay, boom, 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 boom. And I had some guys in Toronto helping me and see where we could go. So we ended up, and I'm putting money away. I got the $50,000 paid off. Now I'm trying to gather up as much money as I can. I knew CH's year end was July 31st. Yeah. So as long as I had it in that year end, it'd be fine, right? So I'm thinking, okay, if I can pull this together, I want everybody who was in that meeting to be there when I bring the check in. You know, otherwise I'm not bringing the check in. This is me talking to myself. Yeah. And then I thought, no, that's not good enough. You know, I want the owner of it was WIC Communications, that a big corporate, national company. I want the president of WIC to come fly in from Vancouver to get the check, because that's you know what I mean? Yeah. Being a jerk, But it motivated me. So finally, the day came, July 31st came, and I'm at home, and I get a phone call from their financial officer saying, it's July 31st. I said, yep. He said, weren't you supposed to bring us a check today? I said, I dropped it off at security. It was meaningless to me at that point. Yeah, I'd moved forward. I gotten on with everything.
But it got you there.
It got me there.
Yeah.
Forward movement I highly recommend forward movement.
Yeah. No, I agree. So let's jump back.
Yeah.
And Smith and Smith finishes up that show. So how do you make the transition from that into to starting the Red Green show?
Well, when Smith and Smith, we felt we'd gone as far as it could go, and Morag is like, she's a driving force here. She wanted us to do some kind of a sitcom because she felt our kind of show was passé. There weren't variety shows on TV anymore.
Yeah.
There were music shows, there were comedy shows, and most of the comedy shows were sitcoms. So we created a sitcom called Me and Max, and we had to be able to do it for the same budget as Smith and Smith. So we used our kids, and everybody had multiple characters, and it was an exercise. So we did that for a year, and then I got a call from Telefilm. Some guy worked there saying, we've got money for productions, and we're the kind of people you're the kind of people we should be supporting, right? So I said, come on in and let's talk about it. So I think, well, this is going to solve our problem. Now we'll have enough budget to do something. So I go in to see them, and they got rules, and one of them is you can't do anything like anything you've ever done before.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid the broadcasters will just use it as a way to subsidize what they were already doing.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So now I got to call, okay. So we created this thing called Comedy Mill. So we got 3 very talented people, and we had a bunch of writers, and, we just kind of took it up a notch, got a fancy schmancy director, and tried our hand at that. And I wrote all the music and so on, but we had music videos, and the production value was way up and beyond, but it just never caught. It didn't click the way Smith and Smith did, because it wasn't connecting at the personal level, right?
Yeah.
So then we did that for a couple of years, and then it was like, okay, well, now what? I've done pretty much everything everybody wanted me to do, and it didn't work out so good. So let me see what I would like to do. And in fact, Morag said to me, you decide what you want to do, and then we'll just go along with that. Well, I'd always enjoyed being Red Green, and I'd created the character in 78, so it was, by this time it's like 88, so it's 10 years old. And so CHCH was still friendly to me, so I went in and just pitched just doing some kind of Red Green show, and back to the old level of budget, low budget, no Telefilm. I don't want to be waiting for some government agency to decide whether or not I have enough money to go ahead doing something I don't want to do anyway,
Yeah.
And so they agreed to that, and then away we went. And it was from the beginning. From the first episode that went on the air, I knew something was going on. So, but it's funny how when you look back, like talking to you, from where you start to where you get to, it's
Oh, I know.
You don't think about it. If you ever saw it, you'd think, I'm just going to go work at Stelco.
Well, I even think back at, going back to Smith and Smith, the amount of work I know to put that together. First of all, you go out and play, you have a repertoire of songs you do.
Yeah.
And you're not doing the dances anymore. So you've probably narrowed your amount of songs down to a certain amount. But now you got to do year after year of TV shows. And you got to be writing songs. You got to be doing new songs. And you got to have all this material, which is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I know with the Walters family, we had a couple television shows with CKCO and Kitchener.
Oh, yeah.
A couple series and 2 or 3 specials. The biggest issue was like, okay, we got to come up with a bunch of new songs. Because you're used to playing this set of songs, but you've already burned through those songs.
Right.
Now you got to do other songs, but they have to be just as entertaining as the other ones. And that's tough. And it's a lot of, people have no idea how much work that is.
No.
And you got to be confident that it's because every entertainer does what they do well. And sometimes you have to stretch out of your boundaries a little bit just to cover some space. And that's the stuff that's really trying on you, because now you got to come up with some more songs. You got to, okay, maybe we got to do a little bit more music this way or this style just to kind of fill in some stuff. And then you get into uncomfortable zone, right?
Yeah.
Where you're going outside your comfort zone as a musician. That's why I always find it weird. I know I'm jumping here, but if you watch American Idol, right?
Yeah.
Or one of those shows, and you've got a singer who's definitely a rock guy or someone who's more classical, whatever.
Yeah.
And every week, now it's country week. It's like, well, this guy's not a country singer. Why are you forcing him to do something that he's not good at?
I know.
And then you're judging him for it.
I know.
It's really bizarre.
I know. It's like Las Vegas is running American Idol. They want the variety guy.
Yeah. And you can't be good at everything.
Almost. There might be an exception, but I was going to say almost. I'll say almost no singer that I like would ever win American Idol. Now, some of the singers to me who have won are really, really good, but once they get out of there, they focus on a niche, and that's what they're going after. I mean, like Carrie Underwood is country crossover. That's what she's doing.
Yeah.
She's not a rocker. She's not a blues singer. She's,
But
so
she's able, there's a few that...
she's got the guns to do it.
Yeah, she can cross over and do a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
But some of these kind of quirky, unique singers that you really like.
Can you imagine Bob Dylan on American Idol? How do you think that'd go? Or Neil Young?
Yeah.
Eh?
Oh, yeah. It's Broadway week.
You'll need some higher leg kicks, Bob.
Yeah, it's strange. So, your first Red Green episode.
Yeah.
Did it just kind of fall into place, or did you really feel like you had to spend a lot of time getting it figured out?
To do the presentation for the idea of the show, we'd already put a lot of work into it. And by now, there's a guy named Rick Green who was in a group called The Frantics, and he and I had been working together at that point for probably 10 years, where he would write little things for me, and then I would bring him in and have him really be, almost like an assistant show writer kind of thing. And then on Red Green, he and I we created the show together and wrote it all together for the first probably 6, 7, 8 seasons. So I had help, it's not like I did it on my own. But we had it pretty well laid out, and we're just going to have fun. I mean, it was going to be a summer job. This was going to be maybe 6 months, and then we go find something serious to do, because we're doing goofy things, turning a clothes dryer into a popcorn machine, and it's just wacky stuff, and no budget. I mean, I can remember one of the things we were doing, we were going to put gull wing doors on a 78 Granada. So the first thing I had to do was take the doors off, right? So we're shooting this thing, and it's just me and the camera guy and an audio guy and a lighting guy. So 4, and Sandy, our production manager, 5 of us there. So I'm doing the bit. I pull the door out, open wide. Now we cut. Now I get out a oxyacetylene welder, cut the hinges to almost all the way. I'm doing it. I'm cutting it. Then I get in the possum van. Now we roll the cameras. I drive the van up, slam the door off. I mean, that's the way we did it. It was like we were 9 years old, building something in the backyard.
Yeah.
And having a ball. And the fact that people enjoyed it, it was a miracle. But I will say this: it was so different from anything else on television.
Yeah.
That even if you didn't like it, you were aware of it.
Exactly.
We didn't get lost in the noise.
So obviously you did all these things where you were building, and so up until then, were you just this handy guy all along? That's something part of your DNA, or is it something you kind of transitioned into for the TV show? I'm
a special kind of handy guy.
Yeah.
Okay, if you've got something that doesn't work, you got an engine that doesn't run, something that's not functioning properly, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
If you want to redo the kitchen, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
So I know how things work. Probably from 14, 15 years of age, I was working on gas engines and rebuilding stuff, and I still do. I have old cars now that I keep on the road myself.
Yeah.
So I have a mechanical aptitude, and I have an interest in doing that. And because I have what I think is a comedic mind, which is I see things differently than other people do, which is not always an asset.
Yeah.
Like that's probably why I shouldn't be in sales.
Yeah.
But it's the same with mechanical things. When I see something, when I see an auger that drills down into the ground, to me it's like, well, I could use that to pull things up. Like I see the opposite of how it could be used. That kind of thing. It's just if you look at things differently, and then most people haven't looked at it that way. So it's not just they find it funny, it's a surprise that, oh, that could do that. You could use a mix master to open and close your windows in your car.
Yeah, it takes a special mind to put all that stuff together. It's amazing. So the TV show, as you mentioned, got into second season, and then you had to look at financing it yourself. after that. Were you? That's correct, right? After the second time.
Well, once it got canceled, then
canceled.
I had to find another. CHCH was no longer going to be supporting the show, so then we really danced around after that.
It's so that must have been. You knew you had something good on your hands, and then.
Yes, from the time the letters came in.
Yeah.
I knew that I was on to something. So I thought, for the sake of those people, I need to do something. And also treat it as I don't think Canadians are like naturally effusive. I hope you won't take offense at that. But, they they can really like you and come up and say, hey, not bad,
Yeah.
Whereas Americans are quite demonstrative both ways.
Yeah.
They don't like you, man. There's no secret. But I thought, when I watch Monday Night Football, and I look at 100,000 people in the stadium, I think, I wonder if there's any red-green fans there. The potential red-green fans. So really, the letters from the Canadians when the show was canceled encouraged me to see if we can get something happening south of the border. And it was another one of those things where we went everywhere trying to get somebody to pick us up, and there was a gatekeeper, like those access people, everywhere. This was just outside of the box, and they just couldn't. And finally, one of the agency representatives took it to somebody at PBS. They have a syndication wing, and they thought, you know what, this might be a show that people really like, and therefore will write a check.
Yeah,
because that's what PBS is all about. And there was a guy in Detroit, Jerry Traynor was his name. He was the manager of the station, and he was the first one to pick up the Red Green show. And he was a very well respected man in the PBS world.
Yeah.
So then we had 5. Now we started with 5 stations, and they started having success. Now the Detroit thing, I got to be honest, was somewhat based on the fact that that station comes into Canada. So when they raise money, and nothing Canadians like more than seeing a Canadian show on a U.S. channel.
Yeah,
they share in that success.
Yeah.
So and then away we went, and we became the #1 fundraising series for PBS. I mean, I'm not talking about where they'll bring in an Eagles special. It has nothing to do with them. They didn't produce it or anything. It's just they're just glomming onto it.
Yeah.
A show that they run every week. We were their #1, and we ended up doing live satellite. I called them begathons, but I presented them as pledge-otainment, where we would entertain and ask for the money all in the same mishmash. And we did, I'd say, 3 of those live via satellite. 2 of them we did from Hamilton, and 1 we did from the CBC, and it was kind of neat. I mean, we're going into 30 million homes from Hamilton, from the place that had fired me. It was kind of cool, so that we at our zenith, we were 120 PBS stations, and now, I mean, don't forget, I stopped doing the show in 2006. I mean, it went off the air, like the first runs went off the air in 2006. So here we are, 12 years later. I don't even know how many PBS stations I got left, maybe 15 or 20. It doesn't matter because we're on YouTube, and I get kids coming to these concerts, these shows. Didn't know the show was ever on television.
Yeah, discovering it. Yeah.
I'm so lucky that YouTube came along as my television exposure was dwindling, because the station would call me and say, well, we're not going to pick it up next year. And I say, oh, okay. And like an hour later, we're on YouTube in their area. And then we use Facebook to let the viewers know that don't worry, now you can watch it anytime you want. Anyway, so
that's fabulous.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, I think it's changed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a medium that you can get it anywhere.
Get anywhere, no ads.
Yeah.
Well, very
and
few
anytime
ads.
you want to watch it.
Yeah, suit you, whatever suits you. And you want to go back and see that again or whatever, no problem.
So when did you start actually going out and doing live comedy stuff at events?
Well, here's what happened. When I left the show. We shot the last episode November 12th, I think, 2005. So the University of Toronto wanted my hat to go in the archives, the University of Toronto Library, I should say. So I gave them the hat, which was the same hat I'd worn the whole 300 episodes, 15 seasons. I'd been offered $5,000 US for it and turned it down because it had sentimental value to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was done. I was done being Red Green, 2006. Well, so we spend our winters in Florida, and my wife is a really good singer, and there was another guy there, was an Irish guy, and he had been in a gospel group. And we were in maybe a karaoke bar, I don't know, somewhere. Anyway, out of the blue, he says, what do you think about singing together, the three of us, to tracks? So, okay, just, for a hobby or something, right? So,
yeah. So
we belong to a club called the...
You want me to close that door? No?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good.
We belong to a club called Miramar Golf Club, and so we call ourselves the Fabulous Miramars, and the three of us, we do 3-part harmony. And I had done vocal arranging as a job in the late 70s while we were starving to death. A friend of mine managed a bunch of bands, so I had some experience in that. So we did some really neat. We only did songs we liked, and I would edit tracks together, so we would do medleys and so on. And he was a really good singer, and my wife's a good singer, and I can fill in. You know how you can fill in the spot if you're reasonably in tune. It makes it all sound good.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. We had a lot of fun, and we would perform at local golf clubs. And there's a friend of mine owns a little bar in Florida, and we'd go and perform there once a month. And then I got a call from the Halifax Symphony saying that they wanted me to do a Red Green thing with the symphony. So I said, well, I'll do it. But I would like to do is come out as Smith and Smith, then bring Tom out and do the Fabulous Miramars, and then I'll do the second half as Red Green. And I was really looking to do that as a way of wrapping up the trio because it was coming to an end. He was moving to Dallas, and it was just... And we got the Windsor Symphony too. So we did those two jobs. And the second half, where I had to be Red Green, everything kind of came together for me. It was like, I really enjoyed being on stage. Although I enjoyed the musical part of it, I enjoyed more saying things that the audience would laugh at.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, maybe I'm not done. I got my hat back out of the library, and away we went. And so then that was now, so let's say 2009. So I decided, as a way of seeing whether or not I could pull off a one-man show, and also a way of helping PBS, I decided to do a U.S. tour, PBS stations, anybody who'd have me. They're the promoters. They get the venue, they promote the event, and they get all the money, every penny of the ticket sales. All they had to do was cover my travel costs, which are minimal. I mean, I travel alone. I fly economy. I stay at cheesy hotels.
Yeah.
So I did that and raised a whack of dough for them. I probably did 40 shows, and I mean the one in Alaska, they raised over $100,000. So I mean it was a
big deal. Yeah.
It was it was millions of dollars to PBS, and I had stations that wouldn't pay my travel expenses, and I'm talking. Wow. I remember Salt Lake City. It was like $708, and they wouldn't pay. And 2 years later they haven't paid. And that's it's not that I need the $708. It's just that's disrespectful. Yeah. So I had our law firm contact them, and we got the money, and we also got a message that it was our fault that they hadn't paid because we didn't pester them enough.
Oh gosh.
And I was just like, okay. So then Brian came along and said, would you, he had come to one of these in Daytona Beach. I think he came to one of the shows. He said, would you like to do it, like as a commercial venture? I said, yeah, I think I really enjoyed the work, and I mean, I didn't want to slap PBS in the face, but I gave, what I mean? We're done here, you didn't lose. So now, is it my turn now, And a lot of the PBS stations are very angry with me for doing it, without them,
Exactly.
and told me that we would fail, and so here we are, 4 tours later, we're doing fine,
Yeah. So there was that one time that Brian saw you down in Florida. He kind of Brian's finding out he needs to see something, or he just needs to he almost needs a vision of some sort before he can get behind something. He has to. I think
he came down to watch the audience, to be honest with you.
Yeah, see what's going on
and see who they were, how enthused they were, because he stuck with me through all these years, and we did one of the tours was right through Hurricane Sandy. We're on the East Coast, and like we just said to people, don't worry about it. If you've got a ticket and can't make it, we're giving you a full refund.
Yeah.
It's just.
I was there. I was
there
on
you
that
go.
one. I remember that one.
Remember that one?
Oh, remember almost running out of gas.
Oh yeah, jeez, the line up for miles and miles, and I remember the hydro trucks. Never seen that many hydro trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he sensed that the audience was loyal, and was growing, and also was getting younger. That's the biggest surprise. Our average age was getting younger. That's how we did more and more tours. Usually goes the other way,
So what was it like putting together that first tour you went out with Brian and putting the material together? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, you want to lean back. I mean, I had done 15 seasons of Red Green, so I had lots of stuff to lean back on, but and that gives you a comfort. You think, okay, I've got to say, worst comes to worst, I'll cherry pick. Nobody's going to remember everything. Yeah. But then you get to the point, it's a different animal totally. Television and live performance, totally different animal. You've got to be so much more conversational because the person's right there, and when you talk the stuff through that you thought you were going to do, and it's just like, that doesn't work. So you end up writing it. So it makes a bigger load on you creatively. But again, going back all those years to that guy from Deep Purple, if I can't create something that people want to hear, I don't deserve to be there. So it's better for both of us if we find out right away.
Yeah.
And to get out there, and you never know, when you know this, you get on stage and what you thought was going to be really strong isn't so strong, and what you thought was a bit of filler was really strong. Just you get surprised both ways, but they're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's different for you too. You take a lot of comics who are famous now. They go into the clubs and work out all the material.
Yeah.
So they'll sit there and they'll do the 12-minute spot, and they'll go in week after week or day after day and just keep working it and working and working and working it until it's good, and then they'll go on tour.
Yeah.
You, in most cases,
every case.
Yeah, you go. Your first time out, it's the
Coming
first
right out of the gate.
show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really hard.
It's hard, but my audience isn't in the comedy club. So
no.
If I went and did comedy clubs, I would come up with a Red Green show that no Red Green fan would like.
Exactly, yeah.
Because the stuff that works in comedy clubs is so aggressive, so angry, so obscene. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing that, they don't, they're kind of, it's a yawn for them.
Yeah.
So it's like, get up on stage and see how badly you can demean yourself and everybody there for the next 10 minutes,
Yeah.
I just feel like there's a guy named Craig Ferguson, late night guy.
Yeah.
I liked him. I thought he had a really sharp mind, quick, witty. Yeah. I went over to see him in Seminole Casino in Immokalee, Florida. And like 10 minutes in, I'm like, I have to leave now and maybe have a shower,
Yeah.
I'm just too...
it's different. Way different.
Way different.
But still, getting out there and having to do that full show, front to back, in front of an audience without really talking, there's the timing and the everything is, but you seem to nail it right from the very first show on.
Well, thank you, Darren.
Yeah. No, because I've seen all the first ones, and there's no stumbling. There's no figuring it out. And I know as you get going, you figure, like you said, you figure out which ones. Oh, I didn't expect that, or there's more laughter for this.
Right.
And I see it in you because it makes you chuckle sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see something at work that you weren't expecting or something, and it makes you chuckle, and that's really great. But you must have to sit and just kind of run it in your mind. Well,
for example, today is whenever the date is. My first show for the new tour is March 22nd.
Yeah.
And I've written the show now.
And we're in October.
We're in October.
Yeah.
And starting maybe this week, but next week at the latest, I'll rehearse that show every day. And like I'll go for a walk. I can't just sit there and do it. I have to be walking around so that something distracts me. Somebody honks their horn or a car goes by. There's something to distract me, and I can still stay on the script.
Yeah.
Till I can do that, I'm not ready. You can't believe how what you think you know something. Well, I don't have to tell you, but You get on stage, it's like, you know.
Well, I know, in our show, we'll throw in a couple jokes here and there, right? So maybe I'll say 2 or 3 in a show.
Yeah.
Short little, funny little things. And I just know the time I spend running that in my head, just those little ones, so I know that I'm not going to stumble on it. Because the timing has got to be
absolutely
right.
Yeah.
And just for those, and I think, wow, now I'm trying to do 90 minutes of that, where you don't have to like sit. You can do 4 or 5 songs and be playing.
I know.
Thinking about the next joke in your brain before you get to it.
I know.
You can't.
I don't even have anybody else to talk. I'm up there by myself. So, yeah, but there's a key here that I have to get the show. I have to work at the show to the point where I think it's funny, right?
Yeah.
And once I think it's funny, it's like I can't wait to get out there and share that with the audience, and I want to present it to them in the best possible way. And I used to be like years ago, if I had something that I thought was a bit soft material, that was a bit soft, but I need the time.
Yeah.
Then I'd present it, I'd kind of throw it away almost. It's like, I got to get through this, sorry, Now my approach is if I discover, the audience lets me know that I've got a soft piece, then I try to overperform it. Like my performance has to make up for what it's missing,
Yeah.
And it's a healthier reaction to a problem, sorry.
Yep. So as you're traveling around, are you one of these people who, you're at a store somewhere and something funny happens, you have to go back and write it down or remember it because that's going to be a good bit, or do you sit and you write, or what's your approach on putting a show together?
Well, I have this file of ideas.
Yeah.
I call it RG, raw material. So anytime I have a thought that I think may or may not have legs, I don't judge it. I just write it down. So I don't do anything until I've got 100 ideas on the list.
Wow.
And then I say, okay, now I'm ready to start writing. So I say, okay, today I'm going to find 3 ideas that I want to expand into a bit.
Yeah. And
I say to myself, if you've got 100 ideas and you can't find 3 that you can expand, you really shouldn't be doing this. No. So like I shame myself into doing it.
Yeah.
So once I take those 3 out, I'll work on them, but while I'm working on them, I'm adding more. I won't work on anything else till I add 5 ideas back into that list.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And so I've always got in my mind, it's like, don't panic. You've got this huge supply of stuff and you'll find something,
Yeah.
So that really helps me, because once desperation creeps in, your first show is 10 days away and you're 20 pages short of a 23-page show, that's a problem. And what happens is you'll do worse stuff because your mind convinces you that it's better than it is, because it knows it has no option. It can't make it. It doesn't have time to make it good.
Yeah.
So it has to convince you that what you got is good.
Do you find you have to, do you know it's just funny yourself, or do you sometimes have to work your bit off of somebody just to make sure it's funny? Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I do. But I have what I think is funny, and I'm right. Honestly, I'm right most of the time.
Yeah.
But I'm not right all the time. But if I said something to you that and you find it funny or don't find it funny, that doesn't mean that an audience would react that same way. There's something about the group mentality.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest laughs I got, I'm not sure that an individual person would find that funny. I mean, it's just the weirdest.
Yeah, it's different when it's a group, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because it's like watching a funny movie. Mm-hmm. I know I'll sit and watch a funny movie and I'll think it's funny, but I'm not laughing out loud.
No.
When you're sitting by yourself. No. But you get 20 people in the room watching a movie with you, all of a sudden you'll start laughing because everyone else is laughing.
Exactly.
But individually, I'll never sit there and just laugh.
No. I mean, I laugh. You've seen me laugh on stage when they laugh.
Yeah.
Their laughing makes me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great because, obviously I think I've seen the beginnings of all the tours and usually come back near the tail end, mm-hmm. and very little has changed.
Yeah.
Like there's not much editing going on.
No.
Maybe twisted the way you said something here and there, but you don't do that first night and it's like, okay, I got to take this out. I got to fix that. It's pretty well, it's solid right from the first show you do right to the end. and which is pretty amazing to be able to just jump out there and it's all good. But I guess that's just working at so much work beforehand before you go out.
Yeah, I do put a lot of work into it, and I know my audience. I know the kind of thing they like, and here's why: because it's what I like. That is such a bonus. If what the audience enjoyed was something that I don't like, I would be so resent having a career, because I'd be so trapped into doing what I didn't want to do. And I mean, I don't have a huge following, but I'm absolutely true. I'm absolutely doing what I want to do. If I say something that's supposed to be funny, I actually think it's funny. It's not like some corporate guy who's been paid $100,000 to write this line told me this. Don't worry, Shecky, this will be funny. So, and I think people know that this is the line between Steve Smith and Red Green is pretty blurry. Yeah.
So, doing shows now, obviously, the big component is you do a big meet and greet post show. That must be pretty fascinating going through that every show, and I know I've sort of been packing up around you, listening to people coming up. There's a lot of stories, a lot of heavy stories too. That
well, I know they lost somebody or something that was their. I reminded them of that person. Yeah.
Yeah, you must hear that. That's got to be. You must have to kind of just. Mm-hmm. Put that in a drawer and just kind of keep going to the next person, because it'd be hard to take all the time.
Yeah. Well, no, they wanted to tell me. So
yeah, and it's important.
It got done. You know, and it means a lot to me. But it's like you can't dwell on that stuff. You gotta. One guy said to me, one of the ones I'll probably remember my whole life. This was a guy early 20s, 23, and he said to me, "You make me look forward to getting old." I thought, man.
That
cool. May be the greatest compliment I've ever had. Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And a lot of young women say this was the show they watched with their dad.
Yeah.
Because the way families watch TV now is somebody's up in the bedroom watching on their phone, somebody's watching on their iPad, different shows.
Yeah.
Not too many shows a family watches all together. So I'm proud of that, and I get the meet and greets. I mean, I know a lot of entertainers can't stand them, but for me, it's just like, man, are you kidding me? These are the people that got you what you got. You gotta. It's a chance to say thank you, not get out of here.
Yeah, and it's rare that I'm not sure what the percentage would be, but it's a large percentage of the audience that stays for a meet and greet. It's not like 10% or it's 50, 60, 70% of the audience that are on the line.
And more of them would stay if nobody stayed.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them probably see the lineup and they're like, "Oh, okay,
forget it."
Yeah, that's really, really great. And then merch wise on the road, there's everything you can imagine. What you've put together is fantastic for the Red Green fan.
You always got to be bringing new things in, because they buy stuff and they have more stuff than I have, but now this tour, this could be it, and we're calling it This Could Be It. So I think we're going to get more people staying for the meet and greet on the chance that this is the final goodbye. I mean, nothing serious, but in terms of this could be my last tour. I don't know. I mean, I'm healthy. I'll judge it based on how the tour goes. Do we sell any tickets, and do they get their money's worth?
The tough thing about touring, it's great when you're on stage and you're doing the performance and all that stuff. It's all the other stuff that's just such the drives and the all that's difficult to.
I hate a night off. So I said to Brian, let's just go and do it. It's a military operation,
Yeah.
You don't go into Afghanistan and get Saturday night off, just let's do it.
Yeah, and you get locked in.
Yeah, you get a rhythm, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want to, even one day can really mess that up.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You think, well, it's nice to have a day off, but that one day, I know I was doing shows here at the theater, we'll go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you get Sunday off, and then you think, oh, it's great. And you go back into Monday again, it's like, gosh, I lost my rhythm here. What's going on?
Yeah.
And it's just that one day can
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's worse when you're on the road, because you have the day off, but you don't have any of your stuff. You're you're in Phoenix or Dallas or something.
Yeah, and most likely you're traveling. It's not usually
right. The reason it's a day off is because you got to drive 800 miles.
Yeah, we're going to take this day off because it's a 15-hour drive to get to our next gig. Yeah, that's how it works a lot. So obviously, this could be the last tour coming up, or could not. And I know you've been spending a lot of time online with stuff. So you've obviously have everything up on YouTube, and your social media numbers are huge. Now you've been getting into Twitch, right?
Yes, I have two sons, Max and Dave. Season 1, season 2. Yeah. So they've taken over, like, let's say 90% of the company operation. All I'm doing now is the live tours, really, and whatever else I feel like doing. But so Dave's done this Twitch thing, which I think he's doing Sunday nights now. And he calls it Red Green Junior TV, and he talks them through an episode. And I watched the first one, or one of them. He's just really, really good. I mean, I'm not just saying that.
Yeah.
He was a youth pastor for 4 or 5 years. I mean, and he did a lot of sermons in the church. So he talks easily to people. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And he's built it up well. He's got a lot of followers, and they got a beard growing contest on now. So I have to judge that before I head south. So at the end of the month.
That's awesome.
Yeah. When I stopped doing the show, and my other son Max, he was producing for our company. But when I left the company, kind of that thing kind of went away. The company kind of shrank, and a lot of people left. And Max wasn't sure what he was going to do. So I said, well, look, I think you need to be on your own, but why don't you and I try something together for a little while? And I said, the first thing will be that we have an online store, the Red Green Shop thing.
Yeah. And
it was really just about breaking even for years. And he took it on, and just, I mean, had to make some changes in terms of who was fulfilling, and where it's cheaper to ship things into Canada from North Carolina than it is from Winnipeg. I mean, it's just,
that's crazy. Isn't it?
Crazy.
Yeah.
So and just made that all work, and just so that just helps the whole thing, and then builds his confidence that he could do that for somebody else. So no, they've done well.
So, tour coming up in March. It's going to be U.S. first?
U.S. first, yeah. I think 34, 35 shows, something like that. And then Canada in the fall.
And then spending your summers in Florida, or winters, in Florida?
Yeah, just like the first show is in March, is in St. Petersburg, so we'll start there, and then away we go. Yeah, I kind of fought the old guy thing, and then just logic eventually is like gravity, it'll eventually wins, so I end up in Florida with all the old people. But actually, when you go to Florida, you find out two things. You're not old, and you're not rich.
Yeah. That's great. That's very true. Well, it's been a pleasure sitting and chatting and learning about everything from when you started off, and it's a fascinating story, and I'm sure people are going to love hearing it. And good luck with the new tour. I'm excited to be out there working on it. And what's the best way for people to find Red Green online?
Redgreen.com. It's all there. Yeah.
Find everything from there.
Yep.
And have fun. What's your favorite thing to do now in the off season when you're not doing shows?
Well, I work on old cars. I got a few old cars, and there was one that's been a real challenge because I brought it to Canada, and to get it past the safety was, oh my goodness, had no emergency brake, for example. That's a no-no apparently. So, and I'm trying to get parts for it, and there's these little arms that go in the back brakes inside the drums, and that's what works the emergency brake. Well, of course they're gone. Years ago they went away. So I get this guy in Ottawa, parts supplier. He says, well, you can get the passenger side, but they don't make the driver's side one anymore. So all that, you pull on your emergency brake and you start doing donuts, So I found a company in California that does sell the driver's side arm. It's under $10, not a big deal.
Yeah.
So I forwarded that to the guy in Ottawa saying, FYI for your next customer. Anyway, stuff like that. I love doing that. I play a little bit of golf. I'm not very good, but I kind of enjoy that. But I enjoy the social side of it more than the game. And I like boating. So yeah, I mean, life's really good. I got six grandchildren now, 4 legit and 2 that I've absorbed, but I love them all the same. And that's a talk about something that you says and does things that you don't expect. I mean, they're fantastic. Only one of them was a boy.
Yeah.
And he comes to me, some toy that doesn't work. And at that time he was maybe 7. And I said, well, it doesn't work because the batteries, it's just the batteries are dead in it because it's electric, you know. And I said, anything that's electric either has to have batteries or has to plug into the wall. He says, I don't think so. I said, no, I'm serious. It's either has batteries or plugs in the wall. No. I said, well, okay. Name me something that's electric that doesn't have batteries or plug into the wall. He says, how about an electric eel?
Oh. Gotcha.
Love that boy.
Do they watch the show or know much about that part of
They tell
your
their
life?
Teacher that their grandfather is Red Green.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they watch the show, but
Yeah.
that's good enough.
Yeah. Well, once again, thanks for spending your time here, and thanks for dropping by, and I look forward to the new show, and have a great winter, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. See you on the road.
This sounds good. Bye now.